Welcome back, our fellow patriots, to the Save Our Republic Daily video series. We are marching on to the 23rd Amendment, which is irrelevant unless there is a close presidential election, then it's key, or if you happen to live in Washington, D.C. You see, the original Constitution, unamended, provided that Article 1, Section 8, gave Congress the authority to govern a not larger than 10 miles square piece of property in the United States, which was created out of secession of property from other states with their permission and with the permission of the Congress to create a capital for the United States. The idea was that it would insulate the national government from local power politics by having it kind of a neutral territory that would not be influenced or surrounded by people. If you had it in Massachusetts, then perhaps the people of Massachusetts would be able to force their political views on the national government. Same thing if it was in Virginia. So there was a cessation of property to Washington, D.C. Congress has the authority to govern it directly. And of course, everything is, the executive actions are also federal. So that was the idea. The 23rd Amendment deals with something that was really kind of an unintended consequence of this idea, and that is that it provides the residents of Washington, D.C. the authority and power to vote in presidential elections through the Electoral College. I think originally it was likely that not many people didn't think there would be a lot of people living in the District of Columbia, otherwise known as Washington, D.C., sometimes known as D.C., sometimes known as Washington, and that the people that really did live there would probably be mostly federal officials or congressmen, things like that, the president. And so they weren't really concerned about them voting in a presidential election. But over time, the population grew significantly, and there were people unassociated with the federal government living there. And having people that live in the United States but not being able to vote for president breaks this idea of the social compact, because you're supposed to have a government that's accountable to you, that you have the right to vote for your representatives, president or otherwise, and that they have certain obligations back to you. It breaches the idea of unalienable rights because you're no longer in control of your rights. Think of taxation without representation, which happens to be on the license plate of Washington, D.C. right now, because they don't have congressmen that vote. The other founding first principles of limited government, equality, they're all kind of squashed if you don't have a right to vote. So that at least it has rectified some of that in connection with the right to vote for president. It's important to the presidential elections because in our enormously, incredibly divided, toxic political environment where elections are determined, often presidential elections, by just a few electoral college votes or a few votes in a state and in Washington, D.C., that might sway the election. And so the fact that Washington, D.C. has the ability to have a voice and the voters have that ability is important to what happens in our republic. Until next time, don't forget about America's Survival Guide at americasurvivalguide.com, Patriot Week at patriotweek.org, and the Patriot Lessons American History and Civics podcast available on all major podcast platforms. God bless you, and God bless America.